or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extend.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, September 11th, 2018, the 17th anniversary of that tragic day in New York and down at the Pentagon and out in Shanksville. And we're going to be spending much of the first hour of our show talking about that as well. Anyway, the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And Mike is in our control room ready to put you on the air with your comments and questions. So let's get in to 9/11. Obviously, that was the catalyzing event to launch this campaign of war across the globe under the label of the War on Terror, which really was a war of conquest against countries that were struggling to break free from U.S. hegemonic domination. And the more wars against terror the U.S. seemed to fight, the more terrorists there seemed to be. It was counterproductive. So looks like we already got a caller on the line. So let's grab Francis in Montreal. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. I'm glad to see you're already talking about this drumbeats of war that are sounding. And I see that Russia Today and the Russian Ministry of Defense are reporting already that the filming of the fake gas attack is underway and that the forces of international Zionism intend to start passing it out to global news sources by the end of today. To get this crisis going. And with this crisis in the Idlib province, of course, you know, there's about 200 U.S. Special Forces and British Special Forces that are in there.
Yes. And
the British don't want to negotiate to get out, but the Americans do. So it's a diplomatic impasse that can easily be solved, but certain people don't want to solve it. And I just want to, in light of that, I'll make it short. I just want to remind you and all your viewers of a news report from 2016. And at first it was dubious because it just came from the Syrian Free Press, but I got it from the Times of Israel as well. And in September of 2016, I was listening to the news, and all of a sudden all the Pentagon generals were just screaming for war with Russia. And I thought, that's odd. Like, what do they want a war with Russia for? Well, what the Russians did was they brought in 2 frigates and fired off some, I think they were Caliber cruise missiles, and they've been listening with their high-tech equipment to communications near Aleppo, and they zeroed in on a ISIS command post. So they hit the ISIS command post with a bunch of cruise missiles and killed everybody inside. Who was inside? IDF officers, U.S. Special Forces, British MI6 officers, Turkish officers, Saudi, Qatar officers. They wiped them out. And they all freaked out. This is when the real, the war thing started going, because obviously these guys are the ones, feeding the weapons in through Libya to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It's just outrageous. Like, they're just lying right in our faces. And the only option they've got now is to try to shut down all the media through censorship.
They're already doing that. YouTube has shut down all of Syria's state-run channels, and I imagine they're going to be trying to jam the independent media as well. But you're right. This is their last card to play, is another gas attack. And let's see. I need to do something here. Anyway, listen, Francis, thanks a lot for the phone call. And before I take any more phone calls, I do want to make a mention about what's happening over in the Carolinas right now. Hurricane Florence is now predicted to intensify to a near Category 5 strength. As you know, yesterday, the governor of South Carolina ordered the evacuation of the entire coastline. Now, North Carolina is starting to issue warnings for their coastal areas and also inland. This is going to be a really nasty storm. So if you're in the path of the storm, please take the appropriate actions. Out here on Oahu, it's looking like Olivia is being torn apart by wind shear, so we're not going to have the issues that they were concerned we might have. We'll see. Time will solve that mystery here. All right, we're going to take one more phone call, and then we're going to basically talk about 9/11 and get through that. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, people in North and South Carolina better get their SHIT together because have your crap ready because, I'm in New Jersey. We had Sandy, and I know what not having power for 15 days is all about.
Yes.
It's hard. 15 days don't sound like a lot, but it's hard.
It's a very long time then when you don't have your distractions like TV and radio and internet and everything, and you're just sitting there in your home listening to the wind and the rain outside. It can be a very, very long time, especially if you run out of water or toilet paper.
And heat, because it was cold.
Yes.
I didn't have no heat, so it was cold. Mike, this previous caller called. Yeah, that was the Russians using Caliber cruise missiles attacked that bunker with Saudi, Turkish intelligence officers in that bunker, which was advising...
And IDF and Israelis.
And Israeli. And Mike, we're in a dangerous part right now because this is the biggest last stronghold. I just want to make people... We're in a serious situation because Putin's not backing down now because when he was with the Turkish Erdogan and Iranian president, he says, this is it, basically.
Yeah, it is. This is the end of the Syrian war. Idlib is the last stronghold of the U.S.-backed rebels. And what's really kind of ironic, this being 9/11, when 9/11 happened, it was all blamed on Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda. And now we see the United States literally working to protect Al-Qaeda in Idlib. And so that's got to have a lot of people just scratching their heads and wondering what the heck is going on here.
Not only that, Mike, the British and Mike, this goes back a longer way before now. This goes back a long way, Mike. We have aligned ourselves with Saudi Arabia, Israel, all these other jihadi groups in Saudi Arabia and the Wahhabists for a long time.
Yes.
And this is dangerous, Mike. 9/11 today, everybody's ringing a bell, ringing the names, but it's amazing. No media mentioned anything about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was not in. Saudi Arabian government might have not involved, but elements of it, along with our government and Israel, was involved in it.
Yep.
You can't blame the whole government for a small group of people. But
Well,
Mike,
I would have to back up here and say that I can't imagine Saudi Arabia agreeing to help with an operation like this without the authorization coming down from the throne itself.
Exactly, but Mike, do you see right now there's a fighting going on between the son and the father?
Yes.
Right now, so you have a split. And this is what's been going on for a long time. You got splits, and then, they got to cater to the Wahhabists because the Wahhabists are a very influential group in Saudi Arabia. So, and by the way, there's never going to be no Saudi Arabian super city, with women dressed in short dresses and Saudi. It's not going to happen. Come on. that's another story. But Mike, I'm telling you, what's going on in Syria, we're at a pivotal point because the Russians aren't going to back down.
No, I don't think they are. I don't think they are. I think Trump's advisors have convinced them that Putin will back down and not go into Idlib. But that's ridiculous. Meanwhile, the U.S. is pouring more arms and supplies in there. We'll talk about Syria a little bit, but thank you for the phone call, Dustin. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. And I'm not going to take any more phone calls until we get through talking about 9/11. And 9/11 was one of those moments where you always remember where you were when you heard it. If you're my age, you remember exactly where you were standing when you found out John F. Kennedy had been assassinated. And I remember the morning of 9/11 very clearly. I was awakened by a phone call from a coworker who said, "You'd better turn on your TV right now." And I went on out into the living room. I turned on the TV just in time to see the second plane crash into the tower. And basically, right there, I said, "This is a con job. Pardon me for being cynical, but this is a con job." So already we're seeing the independent media being flooded with all of the kookifiers. These are the paid professional propaganda shills who are out there trying to make anybody who questions the official 9/11 story look silly, and they're out there with their theories about directed energy weapons and micro nukes, and of course the perennial there that there was no plane at the Pentagon, and they're all out there saying the same thing. Trying to kookify the issue. And but there are a lot of questions that should be answered, and they are not answered. How was it the BBC, not to mention Fox and CNN, announced the collapse of World Trade Center 7 26 minutes before it actually happened? BBC's only response to, how did you know, is, well, it was a lot of chaos and confusion. Nobody could have known Building 7 was going to come down ahead of time unless they had their finger on the demolition switch, unless they got Miss Nikki from the UN and her crystal ball to forecast it. So you remember Donald Trump on the day 9/11 happened. This is before he was running for president. He was interviewed as a property developer in New York. And he said on camera that he thought there had to be bombs inside the buildings, that they were built to survive an aircraft impact. And they were. Ever since the B-25 hit the Empire State Building, New York high-rises are designed to sustain an aircraft strike. Now, Lower Manhattan is a no-fly zone to prevent that sort of thing from happening, but they are designed to survive that kind of an impact here. And Trump, when he was being interviewed on WWOR, gave his opinion as a property developer, there had to be bombs. So, all righty. We all know that there are strong indications of controlled demolitions in all of the buildings. We have the very obvious video of World Trade Center 7 collapsing down into its own footprint, which can only happen if every single load-bearing member fails in the exact same split second. That never happens from a fire. And by the way, it's worth remembering that prior to 9/11 and ever since, no steel-framed building has collapsed just from a fire. Out in Los Angeles, the First Interstate Bank building burned right down to the frame and remained standing. Okay, let's see. All right. My computer's nagging me about things here. We know that photographs of the ruins of the World Trade Towers, and there's one that I use in my articles all the time about one of the firefighters. This is before the cleanup began. One of the firefighters standing there, in the aftermath, in the wreckage of the towers, and behind him you can see load-bearing beams cut at an angle, and that is a normal demolition method, where you will go in and you will put your cutter charges to cut the load-bearing beams at a slant, so the top part of the building will walk slightly to one side, and then it starts coming down unimpeded by the load-bearing members. So we had those photos as well. Then we have the strange behavior of the Secret Service down at Booker Elementary School. Now, George Bush was down there at Booker Elementary School. He was visiting a classroom. They were reading about pet goats. White House aide Andy Carter walks on in and informs Bush there's been a second plane that crashed into the second tower. And at this point, according to statements made by the government, everybody knows this is a terror attack. So what does the Secret Service Protective Detail do? Absolutely nothing. And when I wrote the article about this, I made a reference to a Sherlock Holmes novel called The Silver Blaze, in which Sherlock Holmes deduces that the owner of the house was the criminal, because when the crime was being committed at night, the dog did not bark. And exactly the same thing happened here. If this was truly a foreign-spawned terror attack, I mean, look at it from the tactical point of view. You've got airplanes flying all over the country, crashing into buildings. Nobody knows how many of these airplanes are being used for terror weapons, because don't forget there was an ongoing exercise at the same time, simulating the hijacking of passenger jets and using them to crash into buildings. So in theory, nobody could know what if there was an airplane headed for that school. There was an airport only 4 miles away. Now, if you go back and you look at the video of when Reagan, there was the attempt on his life and how quick the Secret Service Protective Detail moved. Their only concern is the president's safety. They're not concerned about shocking the school kids. They're not worried about upsetting anybody else. Their job is to protect the president. If it had been a real terror attack from a foreign sponsor, they would have grabbed Bush, dragged him out of that classroom, thrown him in that armored limousine, and started driving in a random direction to foil a potential inbound. But they did not do that. From the Secret Service in action, it's obvious they knew for a fact George Bush was not a target that day. And the only way they could know that for a fact is they knew what the targets were going to be. The Secret Service did nothing. The dog did not bark. The Bush administration was part of the 9/11 operation. Then we have the dancing Israelis. And this is a very interesting story, and it began with these Israelis in a white van, which was marked for Urban Moving Systems. It was just parked in a parking lot of an apartment building, and it caught the notice of this woman who wondered why they were just standing there with a camera on a tripod. And this was before the first plane hit the tower. So they were there before it all went down. And as soon as the plane started hitting the tower, they start dancing around and high-fiving and cheering and just having a fine old time. And at that point, the woman called the police. And the police arrested these Israelis. The two of them turned out to be Mossad agents. The Israelis were out there saying, no, 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 we're not your problem. The Palestinians are your problem. And the police brought in some bomb detection dogs, and the dogs alerted to the van, and that was basically it. They were held for about a month, 2 months, and allowed to go back to Israel, where they were treated like stars. They were interviewed on TV and saying our job there was to document the event. And shortly after they left, Urban Moving Systems just shut down, and its owner fled to Israel. In fact, it shut down so quickly, people who were availing themselves of storage lockers couldn't get their stuff. The city government had to come on in with bolt cutters and open up those storage lockers so people could get their stuff out there. Do you remember where George Bush actually claimed he'd seen the first plane hit the first tower? How could he do that? There was no live camera on the first tower. There was no reason for there to be one. The only known official footage of that first impact was shot by the Naudet brothers, who caught it inadvertently as part of their documentary on New York firefighters. And it was like later in the day, much later in the day, before it was being broadcast on the corporate media. So the only way Bush could have seen that first impact, and he made the claim twice, was if there was some kind of a closed circuit feed. Now, getting on back to the dancing Israelis, the film, or rather the video that they shot that day remains classified. And I think the reason is pretty obvious, because if in fact it does show that first impact, it proves they knew in advance what was going to happen. Now, a lot of people can be forgiven for wondering why 17 years later it matters. Well, it matters because 9/11 was used by our government to transform our society. We traded our rights for security, and we wound up losing both of them. We're going to take a break for commercials. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, and we will be right back.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com, or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And no, you're not all going deaf. There was a volume issue during that particular commercial break and intro. Getting on back to the beg for money, because Republic Broadcasting needs it, and so does whatreallyhappened.com. And I'd kind of like to change things a little bit today and acknowledge the fact that a lot of you have stepped forward to support Republic Broadcasting. And I want to acknowledge that and say, we thank you. The network thanks you very much. For those of you who have not yet stepped up to support Republic Broadcasting and to keep independent media in this fight against a world war, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number to do a debit or credit card donation or to pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during normal business hours, extension 3 at all other times. Now, getting on back to 9/11, there's another aspect of the case that a lot of people have forgotten 17 years out, and that is the Israeli spy ring. And what happened is before 9/11 actually happened, there'd been a lot of weird things going on where DEA, every time they moved in to try and make a drug bust involving ecstasy, the drug dealers were alerted. And the police became concerned their communications were compromised. And the FBI finally investigated, and they stumbled across the largest foreign spy ring operating inside the United States ever. And it was being run by Israel. And the interception of the drug police data was part of it. Urban Moving Systems was a cover, because if you see a strange truck, you might get curious. But if it says moving company on the side, well, then you figure, oh, somebody's moving in or somebody's moving out. And it involved so-called art students that were trying to get into government offices. It was massive. And Carl Cameron did a 4-part series on the Israeli spy ring that aired on Fox News shortly after 9/11. And what was really interesting in there, they were talking about these dancing Israelis who got arrested. And this government official said there is information linking these Israelis to 9/11, but it's classified. I can't talk about it because it's all classified information. So we have it from a U.S. government official, 2 pieces of information. 1, these dancing Israelis were in fact linked to 9/11, and 2, our own government was protecting them. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Daniel in British Columbia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Obviously, I want to talk about the events of September 11th. I've been following it probably as far back as about 2004. I originally thought it was Al-Qaeda, like I was told from the media, but after watching WTC-7 collapse in its own footprint and watching numerous YouTube videos, I started thinking for myself. I've got a kind of a background following JFK, and once you understand that the U.S. government lies all the time,
yes,
it's not hard to put 2 and 2 together. So there's I think it's still important to talk about it, and I think it's relevant to what's going on today. I had contacted Dr. Judy Wood 2 days ago, and I challenged her to answer a couple of questions that I've wanted to ask her for about 10 years. And so I got to ask her if it's possible that if there was directed energy weapons being used, is it possible that they used cutter charges and thermite and explosions like William Rodriguez had accounted, the janitor?
Yes.
And she immediately got a little bit uptight, and she didn't want to answer it. And I also asked, well, if this technology exists, why doesn't the U.S. military just render every other military on Earth obsolete, from Iran's tanks or their jet fighters or Russian jet fighters or aircraft carriers, just dustify the steel? And then at that point, she got a little belligerent, and I was cut off. But, she was talking about crop circles 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
I mentioned the sub-basement because she's like, all the material just disappeared. And I said, well, there's 6 sub-basements. And the pile was about 2 or 3 stories high. And they carted all the structural steel off to China. And she wouldn't answer that. I said the molten metal that the firefighters claimed was running like it was in a foundry. She ignores all that.
Yes. Well, her job, she's one of the people I was describing at the top of the show that are trying to make questioning 9/11 look kooky and silly. That's her job. And that, along with the no plane at the Pentagon people and various other things, the micronuke people. Anyway, got to let you go. We got to do another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Let's take a few more phone calls here. Tom in Indiana. Aloha, Tom. Well, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. I got ready to, I was going to send you a package, from Indiana today. And what it is I looked on the internet, and Hawaii doesn't have any oak trees. And I got a big oak tree in front of my house, and I picked up a whole bunch of acorns. And I thought if I sent them to you, you and Claire could go, you could plant those around Hawaii, and you could be the Johnny Appleseed of Hawaii. I thought that would be a great
would
thing
we
for you to
be
do.
in trouble for that? I mean, Hawaii has very strict laws about importing any kind of non-native plants.
There's only 3 states in the union that don't have oak trees, and Hawaii is one of them. Alaska is another, and I forgot what the other one is. But getting back to 9/11, I was, I saw all the videos and stuff about what the plans were and all this stuff. But I watched George Bush today, seeing, and he was clueless. That guy was, he was clueless. I would believe that the deep state set that up, and they gave him a script to read after it was all over, and said, "Here's a script you got to read." But I believe that guy was completely clueless as to what was going on.
I think that maybe he wasn't running the op, but I think he was definitely read into it. And we know that Dick Cheney was very much running the op from the Situation Room, because there was this other government official whose name escapes me at the moment. It has been 17 years. And they were tracking this plane coming into the Pentagon. And this official asked Dick Cheney, are we going to do anything? And Cheney's response was basically, no, of course not. We're not going to do anything at all. Okay, so
you remember Haig saying, "I'm in charge now," when he took over for Nixon?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's part of that deep state mentality. What makes you think that Cheney wasn't all part of that?
Well, Cheney, I think, definitely was a lot of the power behind George W. Bush. George W. Bush basically inherited the presidency from his father. They're trying to create a dynasty, just like the Clintons are trying to do, just like the Kennedys were trying to do. Anyway, listen, Tom, we got to let you go here. Please don't send the acorn seeds.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to switch over now to David Joaquin. David, welcome to the show. Thank you for calling on in. And David is the author of a book, 9/11 and the World Today, which touches on a comment I made before the last commercial break, that post 9/11, our nation has been transformed. And frankly, our government has done more damage to what America is supposed to stand for than the perpetrators of 9/11, whoever they turn out to be. So, David, thank you for spending time with us, and tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, pleasure to be here, Michael. I actually worked at 9/11 as a rescue worker, and I find that the Israeli, the criminal Jewish network that's outlined in 9/11missinglinks.com, is basically responsible for that. And when you look at the deterioration of America's government, it all has to do with the influence that Israel, the ones that control the money, have over the government through AIPAC and other funding sources. So,
it may go beyond.
You can't overemphasize the effect that Israel has for the criminals in Israel, not all of Israel, but the criminal Jewish network, which is commonly called the Zionists, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Going back,
it may go beyond just the money here, because if you look at the relationship between Israel and the United States government before and after 9/11, you see a dramatic change, where after 9/11, no matter what Israel wants, they get it. There's no debate. There's no questioning it. And I think what happened is that after Israel and the U.S. government pulled off 9/11, Israel turned around and has been blackmailing our government with 9/11, saying, you give us everything that we want, or we'll tell the world what really happened on 9/11, and it'll hurt you more than it will hurt us.
Yeah, you can see it whenever someone brings it up to, like, even Fox News, right? Sean Hannity, every time anyone says anything bad about the Israelis or Israeli government, totally defames the individual, right? Just denounces their existence, for Pete's sakes, right?
Yes, anti-Semite, Jew hate, Hitler, Nazi, all the buzzwords that are coming out there. And now, of course, we're seeing this ridiculous
attack. And the Hitler, the wrongful reporting of Hitler. If you look at Hitler, that video, The Greatest Story Never Told, Adolf Hitler. It's about a 6-hour video. It's incredible the amount of BS that was taught to us during history.
Can we get back to 9/11? Can we get back to 9/11 and specifically your book, because that's why you wanted to come on the show today. So tell us about your book and where you can get it.
It's on Amazon. It's called 9/11 in the World Today, and it discusses at the beginning it discusses one chapter of my experience at 9/11, and then it discusses similar topics to what you cover on your radio show, but it discusses, the different facets of suppression that are organized and are used to oppress the entire world, and the mechanisms that are used to institute those suppression measures.
Basically, taking away our Bill of Rights, our right to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. They're attacking the independent media. Because the government and the corporate media are realizing they're not able to control what Americans think anymore, and that is a major
and to try to attack our right to even live, right, Michael? I mean, through the foods, they're trying to kill us all off at an alarming rate.
Well, there is that group of people who think there are way too many human beings here. Anyway, listen, David, once again, your book is called 9/11 and the World Today. It's available at Amazon.com. And thank you for calling in. But we're really jammed today, so we're going to let you go and switch over to Chris in Seattle. Aloha. Chris, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask Carl or you, I want to see what's your view of George Sr. being involved with 9/11. We haven't heard him do an interview on 9/11, have we?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. He's not hiding in the wings. Does he have anything to hide, you think?
Well, he may well have had. I mean, he was a former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and I imagine that he kept a lot of those contacts. And when whoever it was who came up with this idea for this staged terror attack, and again, a lot of this goes back to the Project for the New American Century, which was this think tank, and they're still around. They've got a different name now. But in the 1990s, it was called the Project for the New American Century, and they had a policy paper, Rebuilding America's Defenses, which was basically a call for the remilitarization of the United States. And in that document, there was a comment saying that absent a catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor, this remilitarization could take 100 years. And so right there, they're saying, we've got to have a really big bang so the American people will go along with having all of their money spent on bombs and bullets and tanks and warplanes and so forth. And sure enough, they got one.
What do you think caused the buildings to go into pure disintegration, Mike, with no porcelain, no marble, just everything disintegrated to dust? What caused that to happen?
Well, with enough pressure and enough force, anything will get pounded to dust, and that includes, the materials used inside the building. Now, the frame was steel, the outside cladding was aluminum. The building was actually already in structural trouble because of galvanic corrosion, and it was facing this EPA-mandated renovation for all the asbestos that had been used in its construction. And that made everybody wonder why Larry Silverstein worked so hard to get that lease, because those EPA renovations had bankrupted a lot of the other buildings in Manhattan. But 9/11 happened. The building came on down. The asbestos was turned to dust, along with a lot of the other internal building materials. And that's basically what happened.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And we're going to switch to Ann in Austin. Aloha, Ann. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hi, Mike. So, here's my issue. You say really horrible things about anyone that's actually studied the evidence. I don't understand this. The book, Where Did the Towers Go?, is all about evidence. That's all it's about. It's not about theory. It's about evidence. And if people won't look at the evidence, they will stay in this circle of getting nowhere. It's 17 years. We've gotten nowhere. What has AE 9/11 truth done for us? It's kept us in the same place.
Well, we're not in the
nowhere.
same. We're not in the same place. I mean, the American people more and more are convinced that the U.S. government lied about 9/11, and that's the important point. We don't need to waste time arguing over tiny, minute details. We all agree the government lied to us, and that's something the American people need to confront and deal with.
However, no, I agree with you on that. We all agree the government lied to us. We know this. I think we've known this for a really long time. We knew this before 9/11, that they lied to us all the time. That's just the way that is, and we know.
Okay.
And I think most people know this. I think they've known it since Kennedy.
Okay.
You know, the majority of people since the 70s have known that that was a complete and utter sham. Anyway, no, the thing is, it's not minutia. It's not minute details. It's evidence that will show people exactly what happened. When we have other people saying, oh, it was bombs in the building, but yet there's absolutely no evidence of heat.
Of course there's evidence of heat. There's a huge amount of evidence of heat. There's the molten steel pouring out of the corners of the building. That's on video. There are beams that clearly show evidence of cutter charges.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it's true. I've got the photos on my website. All right. Well, just to play along, what is your theory of what happened to the towers?
Play along. Now, don't be condescending. I don't have a theory. I have evidence.
Okay. What does your evidence point to?
It points to what you would call LENR or cold nukes, cold fusion.
Okay. Cold fusion, for one thing, will not detonate. Okay, it is a power generation system that is still in its very early development, and you are a perfect example of the kind of kuka fires I talked about at the very opening of the show. So we're going to let you go, and thank you very much. Told you they were going to call on in. Told you they were going to call on in. So let's get on back here, and yeah, of course, there's evidence of huge amounts of heat. I mean, the core of that debris pile was still molten at thousands and thousands of degrees. At the bottom of the elevator shafts was all this raw iron that had melted and then recooled and solidified, which, by the way, is a byproduct of the use of thermite. Now, thermite is a mixture of aluminum oxide and iron. And what happened, iron oxide and powdered aluminum. I had them backward there. And when it is ignited, it burns very, very hot, something like 1/4 of the temperature of nuclear fission. And the byproducts are white smoke, of which a great deal was seen coming out of the World Trade Towers, and molten iron, a great deal of which was found at the bottom of all the wreckage here. And then there are other issues, like at least 7 of the accused 9/11 hijackers were still alive after 9/11. One of them turned out to be a pilot for the Saudi National Airline who successfully sued for defamation. Now, remember when the news was saying that all these people on the ground were getting these cell phone calls from these airplanes in the air saying, oh, they're Arab hijackers, they've got box cutters. And Project Achilles and a lot of other people, and I did this myself, verified when you are in an airliner at altitude, cell phones will not work. It's jumping too fast from cell tower to cell tower to cell tower, and the cell phone handsets don't really have that range. They're not designed to reach to the ground from 35,000 feet. It was all being manufactured. All right, let's take another phone call from Al in Canada. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Al, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Mike. Are you there?
Okay, you're on the air.
Okay, thanks. I walked in just kind of as that lady was starting that you just talked to. It's people like that you'll never get through to, Mike, and there are a lot of them. They're just too...
No, like I said, it's an organized operation to make anybody who questions the official 9/11 story look silly. And when she started her conversation by saying, you dismiss anybody with an alternative point of view, I knew we were going to get something kooky.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, like, here's the thing. These people, Mike, they're stupid. I'm sorry, lady, whoever you are, but you know what? You are a stupid, stupid, stupid person if you don't understand the simple fact that all of that steel that was pushing up against gravity, holding that building up, just didn't break, collapse, disintegrate, and or disappear. If anything, that building should have maybe went lopsided a little bit, or maybe it collapsed a few stories until all that inertia had worked its way through the whole building. It never should have happened like that. That was a planned demolition, plain and simple. No other building ever will come down the way that did because of fires caused by what? Furniture? It's ridiculous. It's anybody that can't understand those simple facts are stupid.
Al, let's not get personal here, and I don't think Ann is stupid. I think she is a propaganda operative, which is not the same thing. You're right. I mean, the physics are there regarding the fall, the temperature. We know that most of the jet fuel actually exploded outside the World Trade Towers. We have recordings of the firefighters inside there saying the fires were very small and already going out, and they reported hearing explosions. Anyway, listen, Al, stay on the line. We got to do a commercial break. I'm going to come right back to you.
Thanks.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one from Amazon.com. I just wanted you to know I saw my doctor and I laughed because he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I have been taking Extendivite. I had borderline high blood pressure, heart flutter, high cholesterol. I changed my diet and included Extendivite with an amazing turnaround for the better. A few months later, I had a doctor's appointment and took a stress test. I passed. No heart flutter, blood pressure was perfect. My doctor even took me off my medicine. I thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This stuff works, and I'm so grateful for Extendivite. Thank you, Justin G. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show today. We're talking with Al in Canada. The topic is 9/11. And Al, you said you had one more thing you wanted to share with us. Al, are you there? Okay, we lost Al. All right. We're going to switch over. Dustin called back in. Apparently, he wants to respond to Ann. And Dustin, no personal insults, okay?
No, Mike, I'm not going to. But, Mike, I live in New Jersey. I'm right next to New York. And I was home that day of 9/11. No cold. Mike, no plane, no jet fighter left Lakehurst over where I am for a long time. And, Mike, not only that, but do you realize that white van that was on the George Washington Park/Expressway?
Yes.
I saw that. That white van, which was the Israeli moving company, was blocked off on both ends. And the police moved in on that white van. That's a fact. Because I saw it. It was on Fox News.
Yes.
And I used to watch Fox News at the time. So that was a fact. And also with the Fox News doing the investigation on the Israeli spy ring that got busted and that got pulled off the air. So there's a lot more involved than what we know.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, in a lot of ways, whatever the operation was supposed to be, they did make a lot of mistakes. For example, whoever was supposed to bring down Building 7 delayed for some reason, possibly because there were people still getting out of the building. And that's what set up that embarrassment with the BBC and CNN and Fox all announcing that Building 7 had been collapsed 26 minutes before it actually happened. Then you have the George Washington Bridge. That story has definitely been sent into the memory hole because apparently that van, there were more than one van at that time. That van was loaded with explosives. And apparently they were planning on taking out the George Washington Bridge as well. As far as Building 7, getting back to that, it was very obvious that was where Flight 93 was supposed to end up. In fact, if you watch the Naudet brothers documentary on 9/11, it's a great documentary, and it was originally supposed to be about the New York Fire Department and how somebody gets into the fire department and trains to be a firefighter, and they just got caught up in the events of 9/11, and it is a wonderful documentary. But in that documentary, you can hear them. They are told a third airplane is on its way to New York, and that obviously had to be Flight 93, since the only other aircraft was down there at the Pentagon. And it looks like, for some reason, it was shot out of the sky. And I know over at Shanksville, they've made a big memorial over the place where they say the plane came down. But that wreckage came down over 8 miles of countryside. And that doesn't happen from a straight crash into the ground. That happens when the airplane comes apart in midair. And my theory here is that the flight crew...
Can you hold me over?
Yeah, I'm going to hold you over. We'll be back after station identification.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff, and it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down, and I have to work under a table or a computer table and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I can't believe I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And we're talking, obviously, about 9/11. It's the 17th anniversary. We're talking about Flight 93, which is the aircraft that ended its flight in Shanksville. And what you need to understand is that all of these 4 aircraft took off from Gates, whose security was handled by the same Israeli-owned company. And then they literally flew all over the inside of the country as far out as Ohio before turning back and heading for their targets. And not once were they challenged with a single fighter interceptor. They were just allowed to wander around, and 2 went into the World Trade Towers, 1 went into the Pentagon, and the last one, Flight 93, apparently was supposed to go into Building 7 to give it a reason to come on down. Because if you think about it, there was no reason for Building 7 to come down the way it did. But obviously, if it was pre-wired with explosives and cutter charges, they had to just bring it down anyway, or the whole story was going to be blown. So my theory about what happened on Flight 93 is we don't know if there were really hijackers on the planes or if they were, in fact, being remote controlled. And this goes back to the comptroller of the Pentagon, Dov Zakheim, who before he was appointed by George Bush, he ran a company that built remote control systems for passenger aircraft, with the idea that were they to be hijacked, they could be brought down safely to the ground. One of the witnesses at the Pentagon, who was close enough to see the cockpit windows, said it looked like the flight crew were just struggling with the controls. So whether there were real hijackers or the planes were being flown by remote control, somehow the flight crew of Flight 93 got their aircraft back under control. And that would have produced a tremendous problem for the plotters of 9/11, because had that plane landed safely, what was on that plane would have blown the whole story, because it didn't match the official story. They would have found the remote control system. The flight crew would have said the plane was taken away from us, or they would have had whoever purported to be the hijacker. So I think it was shot down. And there is one witness near Shanksville who reported seeing Flight 93 being followed by a warplane. And again, the wreckage from that plane was spread out over 8 miles of countryside. That only happens when the plane comes apart at altitude. Okay, so we're still talking with Dustin. And Dustin, what say you?
Mike, remember Wayne Manson even said there was a CIA airfield where they can make different planes and add engines and this or that to use that. And Dov Zakheim is involved in this. They're involved in this, Mike. I mean, Donald Rumsfeld with the day before. The day before was like pivotal to say what he said with the missing and then the plane flies around the Pentagon and flies into where they're doing the auditing.
Yeah,
Come on,
that was kind of a little bit obvious. It flies around the Pentagon and actually hits where they're trying to find where that $2.3 trillion went away. Somebody got away with a $1 trillion robbery.
But not only that, Mike, but somebody got away with mass murder. Because this was, Mike, this was not about that. It might have been partially about that. There might have been two operations, but this was about this whole PNAC thing. That's what I think it is. It's all about Project for New America. This is what it's about. Because what you see now, up into Syria, Mike, is what's going on. This is what 9/11 was about, is this whole hegemonic crap going on. And it's, Mike, it's lead us to Mike, I just got to say one more thing before I hang up. There's a report that there's this kid on Twitter. He was 16, and he said he wants to be 17. He's asking Donald Trump for help because the Syrian and the Russians are going to kill us all in Idlib. But this kid also did the same video from Ghouta. So this is orchestrated, Mike. I'm telling you, like,
propaganda is big business right now. You know, propaganda is the only part of our economy that's actually still working.
It's scary, Mike, because these people just don't care what's going to happen. You know, this is like throwing the dice out and see what happens at this point. This is what we're down to.
It does feel like that. It does feel like that. They're behaving like, you know, mobsters, organized crime. You know, do what we tell you or bad things will happen to you. All right, Dustin, we're going to let you go. The phone lines are loaded up. I want to give everybody their chance here. Al in Canada called back in. Apparently we had a technical issue that cut him off the last time. So, Al, welcome to the show. What is on your mind?
Hi, Mike. So, yeah, getting back to this whole thing, you know what? It doesn't matter what you think or I think or anyone else thinks. What really matters is there are actually people out there that have spent a lot of money on their education with a heavy science background, heavy science and math background, not a BA in sociology, but, you know, real people that think, and they're called architects and engineers for 9/11.
Yes.
And they know for a fact and have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that what happened on that day was absolutely not possible. There is no way those three buildings could have fallen the way they did. It just simply couldn't happen.
Nope.
Now, getting back to what Dustin said about that $2 trillion that Rumsfeld said was missing or they couldn't account for, it's now ballooned to $21 trillion between 1998 and 2015. And Forbes just put out a month ago did an article on this and said, is our government intentionally hiding $21 trillion in spending? Are they?
I think the answer would definitely be yes. I mean, if you think about how many,
or was it stolen?
I think it's being spent on wars we're not supposed to know are going on, because we're in 7 officially acknowledged conflicts right now. But Bernie Sanders a while back came on out and said the U.S. actually has military in 76 nations. And obviously they all require funding. And so I imagine that $21 trillion is money being spent on conflicts that we, the American people, are not supposed to know are going on.
That's disgraceful, you know. It brings me back to a friend of mine. He dabbles in, you know, you probably heard of this flat Earth theory nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And he thinks that, you know, the government is spending all this money building underground bunkers or colonizing the moon or something because they know something that we don't know about Planet X and all this nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm just saying it's kind of, you know, out there, right?
Yeah, but again, that stuff is being planted on the internet to try and make the internet look less credible than the corporate media. And right now, with the corporate media's credibility in the basement, they're getting really desperate. And so, yeah, this flat Earth nonsense is out there. They keep bringing back Planet X every once in a while. At least they've stopped claiming the Apollo moon landings were faked now that the landing sites have actually been imaged by so many different spacecraft. But that's the real purpose of it, to try and make the internet look silly so that, you know, ordinary people will stay away from those weird internet kooks who talk about, you know, directed energy weapons and micro nukes and cold fusion bringing down the World Trade Towers. But once you understand that this is a real propaganda tactic, and it's called poisoning the well, you begin to understand people are working around it. They're looking at what's going on out there, like the claim there was no plane at the Pentagon, and saying that's obviously part of the kookification process. We can now discard that and move on. And again, there is just so much evidence as to what actually did happen there in Manhattan and at the Pentagon and at Shanksville.
Yeah, I know. I watched it. I watched it. I watched all that stuff happen, and it was crazy. And there were actually firemen and policemen saying there were explosions. They heard them.
Yep.
And those firemen saying it looked like a controlled demolition. Boom, 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 boom. These people
that's
are
in the Naudet Brothers documentary as
firemen.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there you go. I mean, September 11 all over again. And the official story will never change, Mike. 50 years from now, when we're dead, that'll be the official story.
That'll be the official story. It could even get worse.
That it wasn't possible.
If they succeed in making Holocaust denial a crime, they're going to follow up. 9/11 denial is going to be criminalized. TWA 800 denial is going to be criminalized. Vince Foster suicide denial will be criminalized. That's where we're going. That's what we lost on September 11th, was our right to our own opinion. Anyway, Al, we're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network. And we're going to go to John in Austin. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? John in Austin.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Yeah, hear me? All right. In 2003, I started working with a guy. He took early retirement as a maintenance supervisor from the University of Texas. And we were sitting having lunch one day, and he just happened, for no reason out of the blue, started telling me this little story that they had taken delivery of a new HVAC system for the UT complex, which was a big, big job.
Yes.
And they were contacted by the management of the World Trade Center, who were in a desperate hurry to install a similar system or the same system to the World Trade Center. It turned out that the people at UT said, no, you can't have it. You're going to... Because apparently they had obviously contacted the manufacturers and weren't willing to wait as long as it was going to take for them to supply this. So that was just something I heard all those years ago, and it's always stuck with me. And, of course, my immediate thought was, well, what better an opportunity to plant explosives in those buildings if you're going to be fitting a new HVAC system?
Well, that was one way to do it, but the fact of the matter is that the two towers had a lot of vacancies. There were completely empty floors. And
I know.
There, in the weeks before 9/11 happening, there was a lot of noise coming from those supposedly empty floors, to the point where tenants were starting to complain. Dust was starting to sift down from overhead from all the hammering that was going on. And apparently there were work crews that were working on those supposedly empty floors who had their own elevator secured with a key card. Nobody else could use it. And the final thing that got a lot of people wondering what was going on is the weekend before 9/11, the power was shut off to the towers, ostensibly to fix something with a security system. But there were a lot of signs of activity around the World Trade Towers leading up to 9/11.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, that's all I got, man. Yeah.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Richard in North Carolina. And Richard, I hope you're well away from the coast. What's on your mind?
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm up in the mountains.
Good.
Hopefully I'll live. No, I just wanted to thank you for dealing with this subject today. In a way, it was kind of semi-sweet in a way for me, because I was involved in that issue fairly early on, around 2003 or so. I became aware of it with one of the early videos, which clearly showed that it was not as it was told to have been.
Yep.
And I became one of the first 5 members actually, of Scholars for 9/11 Truth, which later evolved into Architects and Engineers and all that other stuff.
Yep.
And so I dealt with that that information for a long period of time, and then and at the same period of time that I was involved in that, I came across the Franklin affair, which just again boggled my mind completely about what was going on in this country. And I don't have anything great to say about all the evidence and whatnot. You've already covered that really well. But the perfidy, the absolute evilness of it, and the realization, with respect to the Israeli involvement and all of that, just really, I guess it led to, for me, not a major depression. Psychologists aren't supposed to become majorly depressed.
Okay.
But it really dampened my life for a number of years, and I hadn't thought about it. Probably there are newer things to think about.
Yes.
That are equally hideous, and I became more concerned with those. But I really appreciate the fact that you've covered it in such detail and depth, and brought back part of my consciousness that I think I may have unconsciously tried to suppress because it was so hideous.
Yeah,
and,
it was hideous.
It needs to be out in the open.
It was very evil. There are evil people out there, and what's really interesting is you have Americans who fell for the official story, who are perfectly convinced that all these people in Afghanistan could be that evil, and yet you suggest that our own government could be equally evil, and then no, never our government, we're the good guys, and that's part of the brainwashing that our government is good and every other government on earth is evil. Anyway, listen.
I know, and our government, real quick last comment, our government is so incredibly evil.
Yes.
That it beggars description. And that's my last comment.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the comment and for the phone call. And we're going to switch over to Jim in Harbor Springs, Michigan. Aloha. Welcome to this show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I always love your program. I've got a couple things I'd like to add. I remember, in fact, I did a 3-hour show on 9/11, and my first interview was with Susan Lindauer. Are you familiar with Susan?
I've heard the name.
Yeah. Well, anyways, the CIA. She was the first woman arrested under the Patriot Act because she knew her cousin was Andrew Card, George Bush's chief of staff.
Yes.
And she testified that they knew about the planes hitting buildings and what have you at the end of the Clinton administration. And she was updating her cousin because she was dealing directly with the Libyans and the Iraqis in back channels. But they knew about the fact that planes were going to be hijacked and what have you. She knew about it. The CIA, not Andrew Card, but Richard Fuse was her CIA handler. She was going to go to Congress because they knew prior that the planes were going to be hijacked. And she was the first one arrested under the Patriot Act, spent a year in prison. But I guess the point I would like to make, if I could please, is that there was an interview with Mayor Giuliani by Peter Jennings before the building 1 and 2 collapsed, okay? And what he said is that he was in the Emergency Response Center, which is in Building 7, okay, right after the plane hit. That's where he went to handle the emergency for the city of New York. There was also another black gentleman that was with him. And what Mayor Giuliani admitted when he was talking to Peter Jennings was that he was trapped in Building 7. This is before the towers collapsed. They were trapped in Building 7. And the black gentleman who was up there with him, and I can't remember his name, he died about 2 months after this, but he had testified that even before the buildings collapsed, they were trying to get out of Building 7, and the stairways were being blown out underneath them. That's what trapped Giuliani. And Giuliani also said, when he was talking to Peter Jennings, that we have been told that Tower 1 and Tower 2 are going to collapse. This is before they even collapsed, for the first time in history. The second thing I'd like to mention is the young lady. Before you
go there, Giuliani was on record because he did get out of the building, obviously, and everybody said, "Why was Building 7 evacuated when it wasn't even hit by an airplane?" and Giuliani said that they were told the building was going to collapse very soon. And then he backed up later on and denied ever being given that warning because everyone wanted to know who issued that warning, who, was prescient enough to say that Building 7, which had not been hit by an aircraft, it only had a few office fires going on, who knew that it was going to collapse? And they clammed up on that one.
Well, and the second thing, the young lady who called us said there was no heat in 9/11. In my research, it was about 3 or 4 months I took to do this 3-hour radio program. But I came across this video that was taken right after the collapse of 1 and 2 by an independent journalist with his cameraman.
Okay,
and they
Jim,
were like 2 blocks away from
Jim, I got to put you on hold. Don't go away. Don't hang up. I want to hear this story, but we have to do it after this commercial break. We'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant them anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're talking with Jim in Harbor Springs. And you had a story to share with us about, I guess, a film crew?
Yeah, it was just a gentleman, independent. I think it was independent, but he was walking down the road 2 or 3 blocks from World Trade Center, and actually it was one of the roads that was actually right next to the building number 7. The amazing thing about this video is right after the collapse of Tower 1 and 2, and you remember those pyroclastic clouds that just went crazy after the building collapsed, you know?
Yes.
Those are like caused by immense heat, you know? But if you look at the videos, it's called Amongst the Rubble. Amongst the Rubble, okay? You get it on YouTube. But he shows 2 blocks, 3 blocks of cars, buses, and trucks. And all these vehicles, they aren't on fire. Whatever happened when the buildings collapsed, that tremendous heat just evaporated everything that was flammable on all these vehicles. And the metal is charred and wrinkled.
Yep.
There's not a door handle. There's not a tire. But it's not on fire. It's not on fire. It evaporated everything that was flammable on that. And all the buildings on that street were exploded inward. Okay, all those buildings suffered major damage. And so it'll show you that whatever was in that building, but there's also a crew from Copenhagen of 7 scientists who did an evaluation of the dust from the World Trade Center collapse, okay? And what they found was nanothermite.
Yes.
And I did a lot of research trying to figure out, okay, nanothermite, what is that? And the scientists said, we have regular thermite, which is really, really, crazy stuff. It burns through an engine in a matter of seconds. But nanothermite, the scientists said, is created from the atom up. Very small particles, okay?
Yes.
Now, the nanothermite, because it's such small particles, is extremely flammable, explosive, okay? And I guess what I'd like to say is that the World Trade Center was even, I guess the gentlemen who were doing the cleanup said they didn't find a desk. They didn't find a file cabinet. They didn't find a computer. They didn't find freezers, which would be in restaurants and everything. Everything in the World Trade Center, the only thing they found was a little piece of a cell phone. So all the desks, everything in there was pulverized immediately, just like the cars on that street, okay? Everything was pulverized and gone. If they never found, like the 1,000 some odd people that died in the collapse of the World Trade Center, but they did find in the Deutsche Building, they found 10,000 both fragments of probably the people that died during the major explosion. So, there was ash, absolutely, but I think it was nanothermite. In my investigation, I searched really hard, and I found out that the only place that created nanothermite, which is a component, we have iron and we have aluminum. The only place you could find nanothermite at that time in the United States or the world was a laboratory owned by the U.S. Navy.
Yes.
So,
yeah, it's
go.
nasty
There you go, my
stuff
friend.
here. And basically what it is, and there are other people who confirm the presence of nanothermite in the debris and dust from the World Trade Centers. And what makes nanothermite unique, besides the small size, is they literally bond the aluminum to the iron oxide, so it's in a single little microscopic flake, and that makes it far more efficient at combustion than a simple mixture of the powdered aluminum and the iron oxide.
I didn't know that. Thanks for that, Michael. I appreciate that.
And there are micrographs of that stuff that are out there as well. So anything else?
No, I just love your show, and God bless America, and, well, God knows. But, 9/11 is an inside job. What can I say?
All right. Well, thank you very much here, and we're going to start with James in Sacramento. James, I'm probably going to have to take you through the commercial break, but what's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael. Hey, good to hear from you. And I'm sure you're pretty busy today with everybody talking about 9/11.
Yep.
I was just wanting to tell you about where I was and on that morning. And I just started a job at the city of San Jose. And I was driving this big old truck 10-wheeler that had this big old fuel tank on the back of it. And we were starting out early because we had to go out and lube up and fuel up all these things that were doing those gravel things that cover the roads. And we're listening to the radio. And, somebody hits the World Trade Tower. I'm like, what, is it all foggy out there? Is it, some airplane in the fog or something, And then, after we're in the truck actually driving, another plane hits the, it was like, okay. Here was the first thing I said, Michael.
Okay,
I said,
Jim, I got to put you on hold. I got to put you on hold. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. After just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. Here we're talking with James in Sacramento, and apparently James is recounting where he was when he first saw that 9/11 was happening. Like I said at the top of the show, it's one of those moments where you're always going to remember where you were when it happened. So, James, if you could finish up your story.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, brother. Yeah, we had to get up early because of that thing. But, once we got done with that, they had us at the airport. And they wanted us to take care of all the equipment at the airport to make sure it was all functioning and fueled up and everything. It was really trippy. And then the other part was how quiet it was for 2 weeks.
Yes.
I lived in a house where they used to come, the incoming landing jets used to come in just off the side of my house, and there was 2 weeks where it was just dead quiet.
Well,
it was really trippy.
First of all,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The passenger airlines were grounded for a couple of days after 9/11, and after that, people were just afraid to fly. And the airlines all took a major, major economic hit, especially the airlines actually involved with 9/11. And somebody made a killing by short selling those stocks before 9/11 happened. Yeah. And the SEC investigated and found nothing.
That was my next thing that I was going to say was, talking about how the mainstream media never talks about how Silverstein and Rumsfeld and Cheney and all those other characters that were all in that scene, and no one talks about any of that stuff. I'm watching this stuff on the History Channel, and it just makes me laugh how they just cover it up, and it's like, yeah, it was some guy in a cave in Afghanistan. And I'm sorry, Michael, but I just can't buy that. It just, as much money as he had with his family, I just can't buy that.
Well, that's another reason to doubt the official story because, the Bin Ladens are a very wealthy family. They're into construction. They do a lot of work for the U.S. government. Osama bin Laden's older brother, Salim bin Laden, was actually business partners with George Bush Jr. in an energy company called Arbusto that went bust. And then Salim bin Laden died in a small airplane crash, which tends to happen a lot around the Bushes and the Clintons here. But throughout all of his youth, Osama bin Laden was just an ordinary kid with a lot of money, and he loved sports cars, and he dressed in contemporary. And then all of a sudden, he becomes this figurehead for the Mujahideen. And there are videos of him being taught how to fire an AK-47.
Didn't that have something to do with Charlie? Didn't that have something to do with Charlie Hebdo or whatever, where they were fighting the Soviets?
You mean Charlie's War? Yeah. Osama,
Charlie Hebdo or whatever.
Osama bin Laden was working for the CIA. His code name was Tim Osman. And he was there, the CIA's point man, doing all of that. And then apparently, despite being presented to the world as this incredible terrorist threat, CIA officials met with bin Laden when he was in the hospital in Riyadh, because even then his health was failing. And nobody knows what they talked about.
He had some kidney disease or something, yeah.
Yeah, but the CIA basically left without taking him with them. And I think it was there they said, boy, are we going to make you famous. And so they gave him the blame for 9/11. And that's another reason to be suspicious of this whole story. The dust had hardly settled around the World Trade Centers when all the corporate media was saying, oh, yeah, it was Osama bin Laden. It was al-Qaeda. No question about it. Yeah. And bin Laden himself came on out and said, no, I had nothing to do with this. And then, of course, a few months later, he passed away.
Yeah. And then 4 years or 5 years later, they killed him.
Yeah, or somebody who looked like him.
Yeah, that was the other thing. But anyway, I always go back to the part where you always say, look for what should be there that isn't. And that's one of the things. I look at this stuff, 9/11 and all the insanity around it and all the money that was, all the money and power that was shuffled around with all of that. My God, Silverstein was like one of the biggest beneficiaries. And it's just a coincidence that he bought it 2 weeks before the planes hit it, Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was that close on the timeline. But another indicator, of course, is that these Israeli-owned shipping companies, Zim Shipping, had their offices in the World Trade Center for years. And 6 months before 9/11, they broke their lease and paid a huge penalty to move their offices across to New Jersey.
See, that's what I'm saying. And over the years, I've looked into all these different things that have come up. And that's just one of them. I haven't heard about that one, but I've heard of a bunch of other things. And, wait. Is it just a coincidence that, that these people, bought their puts or moved their company, or, the plane that hit the Pentagon just happened to be right there where they were doing the audit for that $500 billion that was missing or whatever.
2.3 trillion.
How many?
2.3 trillion with a T.
Yeah, that was it. With a T. I keep forgetting that. I'm such an old guy. I keep thinking in the millions and billions.
Yeah, these days that's pocket change. Anyway,
in the trillions.
James,
yeah.
I got a lot of callers waiting here.
I just really appreciate it, and I'm sure you're busy today. So, once again, aloha and mahalo.
Aloha, mahalo. We're going to let you go and switch over to Russell in Austin. Russell, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Just wanted to mention, there's a really good book on this subject called Solving 9/11. It's the most specific one I've ever read as to who was involved and what they did. It's by Christopher Bolin, and it's really worth reading. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention. Dov Zakim, he also was a director of a company that leased aircraft to the U.S. military, and they could be used as tanker aircraft as well as troop carriers. And so I think it's possible that what hit was one of Dov Zakim's remote-controlled tanker aircraft.
Okay, let me ask you a question here. Let me ask you a question here, because this, again, is part of the let's keep the discussion confused and looking silly. Is it possible that something else was substituted for the passenger aircraft that hit the Pentagon and the World Trade Towers? Maybe. What would be the motive? Because wouldn't it just be easier to cram the passenger jet into the Pentagon, into the World Trade Towers, into building number 7, and then all the forensics match? You don't have to take the risk of somebody uncovering the deception and blowing the whole operation. This gets back to...
That's possible.
Yeah, this gets back to that whole thing. Look for what should be there and isn't. And in this case, what isn't there is a reason for there to be any kind of a swap or subterfuge, because it's all risk and no upside. You still have to get rid of the passenger jets. You still have to get rid of the passengers who are on board. The simplest course is just go ahead and plow those airplanes into those buildings.
The only advantage I was thinking is, one, it would already be remote controlled because they already do that with their planes, and also that it would be a tanker aircraft, so it would make a bigger bang. But it could easily have been a passenger aircraft. I'm not really dogmatic on that. But as far as pre-knowledge, Al Franken wrote in his book Lies and the Lying Liars That Tell Them that he was warned by Ed Koch not to go to the World Trade Center on that day.
Well, Larry Silverstein ate breakfast every morning at that restaurant up at the top of the building, but was not there on 9/11. Ashcroft stopped flying commercial airlines in July of 2001, saying there was an unspecified threat.
Willie Brown, who was the California Speaker of the House, said he was told not to go to New York on that day. And concerning bin Laden, some people claim he died in December of 2001 of Marfan syndrome.
Yep.
And as far as pre-knowledge, there was this small Israeli firm, some kind of tech firm that was located near there.
Odaigo.
They told the they told the FBI that they had received some kind of message saying, "Don't go to work that day." And so there's pre-knowledge. As far as the black guy who died shortly after World Trade Center 7 fell, his name was Barry Jennings, and he had something to do with New York Homeland Security. And he evidently was talking too much and wound up dead.
Yeah, that happened to a few people.
Solving 9/11 is really worth reading. It's worth the time. It goes into great detail about who did what, names like no other book I've read.
Well,
That's
yes.
about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, I hope you are also well away from the coastline. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm up in the mountains too, like that other guy. So hopefully we'll be okay. Anyway, what I wanted to say is one thing today. I decided I was going to listen to some mainstream talk just to see what the enemy is saying.
Yep.
What you call conservative talk, which really isn't conservative. And I listened to Sirius XM, and David Webb was on. I don't know if you know who he is, but anyway, and I managed to call. I managed to call to get through, right? And I brought up. I said, you know what? We're right now. We're saying Al Qaeda, did 9/11, and yet right now we're getting ready to be the Air Force for Al Qaeda there in Syria. So without another second, he right away cut me off. He put me in a mute button and then started shouting. And we're not going to have that kind of talk on this stuff. This is not what this show is for. Something like that, and hung up and just started talking. But didn't surprise me. I expected something like that. I didn't even think he would put me on. Because I told the call screener. Maybe the call screener didn't tell him what I was going to say. But anyway, I even gave a fake name. I said my name is George from Maine. So because I called before, you accused me of being a conspiracy theorist. That was after the bombing of the Libyan airfields.
Yep.
First bombing of the Libyan airfields. So anyway, but the other thing I wanted to say is Fox News, what I call a fake news network now, but back around 2011, and you can see this stuff. This is still on YouTube. No matter how YouTube tries to get rid of it, you see the Carl Cameron, one of the Fox News reporters, doing an exclusive on the Israeli spy right after 9/11. Israeli spying on the United States, and kind of hinting that there might have been something wrong. And also, I believe he talked about the so-called dancing Israelis too. And the fact that
they were part of the same story because Carl Cameron got a U.S. government official to acknowledge there was these dancing Israelis were linked to 9/11, but that information was classified by the U.S. government.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know what happened to Fox News. They've just become a lackey for the I guess.
Well, they got bought out, and the new owners have an agenda. Anyway, Mark, we got a lot of callers still waiting on the line. I'm going to let you go, and we're going to switch over to Keith. Keith, aloha. Welcome to the show. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to say this real fast. In 2001, I was at the pinnacle of my satellite TV installing, and I was probably making about $1,000 a day installing for Dish and DirecTV and also Primestar, which was converting over at the time. Anyway, you'd go into bars and stuff as 2003 came around, and you'd see people cheering at these old war generals like it was a football game, as if they're narrating this football game as they attacked Baghdad. But the important thing I wanted to bring out, like the B-25 that hit the Empire State Building in 1945, it did about $13 million worth of damage and was open the following Monday there. But there's also Stark Aerospace, the Israeli company that had the patent on all the remote control for the 707 through the 767 planes.
Yep.
But there's something really important here that I catch out of this entire thing. We can bicker all we want about who did what and where like that, but the important issue is that Americans, or those behind that, were willing to kill Americans, regardless of how many thousands it was, to promote their agenda. And I'm probably going to run into your break here, but Nikki Haley had yesterday tweeted out, she says, on September 10th, as part of the U.S. presidency of the UN Security Council, I will convene the first ever Security Council meeting that will focus on corruption and its consequences for conflicts around the world. So I retweeted back to her, and this is a flashback. This is not back to 1992, where U.S. bombings hit 28 civilian hospitals and 52 community health centers. over in Basra. The Allied bombs damaged 676 schools. 38 were totally destroyed, 8 of those which were in parts of universities. The mosque and other religious buildings that were hit, historic sites, were not even immune to the U.S. attacks. And it goes on here, talking about all the destruction that was done like that. And so in line with what I was saying there, killing 3,000 Americans to promote a Middle East agenda at whichever time period, which is like Syria today, and looking at Raqqa, you know, if you take a photo of Raqqa and you just turn it into black and white, it looks like Dresden.
Yes.
You know, and the issue is there are those in power that are willing to kill journalists, anything, insiders at DNC, whatever like that. They are willing to kill Americans for their agenda. And that's the most important thing that most people don't realize. And so that's why whenever I've been laughing with you over the years like that about why I'm so against this pluralism, we, our, you know, I can't stand for this stuff where they sit there and say, well, yeah, we're over in Iraq right now. Well, no, I'm not in Iraq. I'm not firing a rifle. I'm not launching a mortar or anything like that. I don't back these illegal wars. And I thought of this laying here the night there. The weed was good, by the way. But I thought, what would you do if your neighbor was fighting with his wife and he came over to your house and says, boy, he says, that woman's out of control. She's just ungovernable. Hey, can I borrow your gun so I can kill her? And you say, sure, and you hand him the gun. And he goes over there and kills her. Well, if this came down to a court case like that, would you be liable in any way for aiding and abetting in the murder of that wife?
I would say so, definitely. Keith, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after this break for commercials.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And you'll have to forgive me. Is this Keith or Ralph I'm talking to?
Yeah, Keith.
It's still Keith.
We were
Okay.
talking about the culpability. Yeah, we were talking about the culpability of supporting this. And you know, when you look at the destruction of Libya with 50,000 dead, almost 500,000 dead as reported over in Syria, a lot of that could be inflated for propaganda there. But I always get amazed on Twitter when you look at these constant politicians out there promoting their books. They should basically be reading something like How I Screwed America and Got Away with It. And, you know, they're all millionaires. And that's why I was never much into history growing up like that, because I kind of learned geography about who the U.S. was bombing at the time. But we have 112 deaths in this country a day. The homeless is 17.7 per 10,000. We have 41 million people struggling with hunger, including 13 million children, 5.5 million senior citizens. The household debt has soared to 13 trillion. The corporate CEO profit is 354 to 1. 50 years ago, it was 20 to 1. And again, again, you know, the number of Americans right now renouncing their citizenship is up 560%. And even Gilead Atzmon just said that everyone he talks to in America right now says they want to get out. But, you know, with all the wars and stuff like that, we see all the poverty and stuff that is caused for the infrastructure to decay here in this country here. And nothing's being done about it. And then we see these politicians out there patting themselves on the back. And that's why whenever they talk about, oh, this is such a great politician, regardless whether they're Republican or Democrat, just look at their war voting record and you can see where their loyalties lie. And they are willing to strip their own constituents of the needed stuff of our tax dollars to fund these illegal wars. And that's what makes me the maddest of all. So when you look at an event like 9/11, if they're willing to kill Americans, they're also willing to kill millions to keep this federal corporation going. And that's what bothers me the most. And that's why I get so tired of this pluralism. You know, I'm not sending troops anywhere, you know.
Well, I am trying to be mindful of that because I don't want to be wrapping myself in with the collective guilt of what this government is doing. So.
Well, you know, here's another one. Like I told you about that Jewish kid that's staying out back here that's former IDF. He was over there with that fireside chat, and I mentioned to him that Hitler didn't kill anyone. And I went on to list the different ones of Mao, Pol Pot, something like that. You know, our presidents and stuff like that, or, you know, pluralism, they're out golfing while they have the troops out there doing the dirty work. And that's when he said something in Hebrew there, and I asked his girlfriend, what was that? She said, grunts. And that's just it. Now the grunts come home from doing all these war crimes. They're sedated on PTSD, drugs, and into the billions of dollars, and they don't care. The IG report says that 307,000 veterans died waiting for care. I mean, this isn't a government that one can support, and knowing what it's doing, it's taking the rights not only of ours, but of others. Anyway, thanks for the call, okay?
All right, we're going to take a break here for station identification, and I got to work out some technical issues with Twitch, and we'll be right back.
I am seeking seems.
Every reign comes to an end. For the crown is coveted by all. But this, you will have to earn.
Supposed skills of yours right now.
My name is Kumada Kumadi.
Kumachi.
Get up here, boyo.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're good to go. We're back on our regular system. And again, one of the reasons that we do need your donations is because we do wear this equipment out. And especially here in Hawaii, it all acts like it's made out of compressed rust anyway. And you wouldn't believe how much equipment I've gone through here just in this little tiny studio, and I can only imagine how much equipment they've had to roll over at RBN. But RBN is running, hours a day. I'm running this equipment to do the website and the radio show together 8-9 hours a day, and it really it does not last. All right, so we're going to go back to the phones here. Ken in Fort Worth, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy, howdy. Why did Twin Towers happen? Was it just to prove that they could do it? They have gold in there to pay off the national debt. They didn't want that to happen? Or are they just mad that a Constitution Convention wasn't being held? What's your best scenario of why they did it?
Well, they did it to basically carry forward on the policy papers coming out of the Project for the New American Century to basically launch a century of war by the United States against the rest of the world, which is exactly what has happened since then. And they chose the World Trade Towers because they were such a powerful symbol of America's might, and therefore the symbolic value was going to be much greater with the World Trade Towers than pretty much any other edifice that was around there, except, of course, obviously the Pentagon itself. The World Trade Towers were also chosen because, as I mentioned before, they were facing a bankrupting EPA-mandated renovation to remove the asbestos. And instead, lucky Larry Silverstein got the buildings brought down by these acts of terror. He collected a huge amount of money from the insurance, and all those first responders on the street got to breathe in all that asbestos dust. And they've spent the last 17 years dealing with all kinds of cancers, mesothelioma. And I remember clearly watching the head of the Environmental Protection Agency telling those first responders that it was safe to breathe the air around the ruins of the World Trade Center. They didn't need special breathing gear or filters, and she just sent them off there to get incredibly, incredibly sick.
Go on, I'm going.
Okay, and we're going to switch over to Tom in Connecticut. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How you doing?
Fine.
I had a friend I live in the area quite close to New York City, and I had a friend who he wouldn't reveal the guy's name, but he knew at the time that there was no way they were going to tell the people how bad the air was going to be, because they kind of had an idea they would never be able to get anyone in there to do anything.
And they were in a rush to get it all cleaned out and sent away as quickly as possible.
But under what circumstances do you think anything possible could make the public accept the idea of how this was done?
I think, if I understand the polls that are out there, I think a large segment of the public, possibly even a majority, don't believe the official story. We've just been lied to so many times that people are looking back at historical events and saying, were we lied to then? Were we lied to about 9/11? And for anybody who actually starts looking on the internet for the available facts, it quickly turns out, yeah, there's something kinky about the official story. And as I was mentioning to one of the other callers there, we don't need to get caught up in arguing over fine details. I'm sure the perpetrators of 9/11 would love for us to spend the rest of our lives arguing over little tiny points, because then they're safe. But it is time for the American people to confront the reality. We are living under a government that controls us with lies, fraud, and deception. Whether it's 9/11, Saddam's nuclear weapons, Assad's sarin gas, TWA 800, it's time to deal with that. It's time for the American people to just unite together and say, we cannot be lied to anymore. We dare not allow ourselves to be lied to anymore, because we get tricked into doing things that are evil, like these wars of conquest. And I can't imagine any parent wanting their children to grow up in a world where they're constantly lied to by the government.
Well, it would it would be wonderful if, like I said, I don't know what source could release something like this, that it wouldn't be so hammered that, to just marginalize whoever it's coming from, even if it was PBS or somebody like that,
Well, PBS is never going to question the official story. The corporate media, that's what the independent media is doing, and that's why they're trying to come down on us. That's why they're, starting to deplatform all kinds of independent media people, starting with Alex Jones.
Oh, it's horrible. I make the point to a lot of people, and they look at me like I'm crazy. I say, "Well, this is new book burning. Are you kidding me? This is not free speech. Where's your ideas on where that's supposed to go for our country?"
You're exactly right. This deplatforming
and how can you let somebody like that talk about anything? I said, well, why not? You don't have to listen to them, right? But anyway, take care, Mike. For now, thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Here, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we're going to go back to the phones to Erica in Kansas. Aloha, Erica. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind today?
I just wanted to let you know that there are 12 nuclear power plants in east central North Carolina, and there is also one on the coast, and also a Archer Daniels chemical plant within 2 miles of that nuclear power plant, just south of Wilmington and north of Southport, right on the coast. It's in the strike zone of Hurricane Florence, and last report it went Cat 5.
I was just looking at it. In fact, I'm looking at it on Fox now, and they're saying it's still Cat 4, but they are worried it's going to be Cat 5. The power plants, because they're built to American standards with a shell around the reactor itself, I expect they'll be okay. The chemical plant, that may be another matter entirely.
Well, I just want to let you guys know that of that potential danger.
Yeah, it is a danger. This is going to be a bad one. There's no question about it. And if anybody listening to this broadcast,
remember Fukushima.
Well, we certainly hope not.
3 Mile Island.
But again, Fukushima's reactors didn't have the big concrete shell that is mandated for American reactors. So, by this time tomorrow or by this time Friday, we should know. Anyway, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go, and I'm going to try and get some non-9/11 news in here before the end of the program, mostly about Syria. The U.S. is still out there saying that Assad has approved gas attacks in Idlib, and they're trying to sell that as hard as they can. That Assad is personally signed off on this, that Assad is mixing up the gas himself in his bathtub, whatever it is. They're trying to get this thing going. And the reason is simple. The Syrian army, assisted by Russian air support, is closing in on the last major pocket of these U.S.-backed terrorists remaining in Idlib. And again, the irony of this being the anniversary of 9/11. 9/11, we were told Al-Qaeda did it. Al-Qaeda brought down the World Trade Towers. Al-Qaeda flew the plane into the Pentagon and so forth and so on. And now here we're seeing the United States trying to protect Al-Qaeda in Syria. It's the very definition of duplicity. So they're out there screaming about, don't use a chemical attack. Assad is not going to do a chemical attack. He doesn't need to give the United States an excuse to come back in. He doesn't need to give France and Germany and Britain an excuse to come on in and start dropping bombs. And Assad doesn't need to use chemical weapons. He's pretty much won the war. So if there is a chemical weapons attack, it is a false flag. Assad doesn't have a reason to do this. The United States does. Now, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, apparently the filming, the production of this staged chemical attack has already begun. And apparently this is going to be a big production. Several Middle East TV channels and a U.S. news channel have been sent to Jisr al-Shugur in Syria's Idlib governorate to produce the footage needed to simply flood the corporate media by, oh, look at all these poor kidnapped dead bodies. And this time, they're really going to be dead, because we understand the White Helmets basically have been kidnapping the families of militants or jihadists who went over to the other side. So this is their punishment and their revenge. So this is the last time they're going to be able to push this, and they're going to try and make it as big and shocking and horrific as they can to try and win you over on the emotional level, so that you don't start thinking about, hey, this is probably another phony. And as I mentioned earlier, the YouTube has shut down all the Syrian state YouTube channels, so they can't get their side of the story out there, which mimics what happened just before 9/11 when the FBI shut down all the Muslim websites inside the United States of America. So they're practically telegraphing that. All right, we're going to start with a phone call from Tom in Philadelphia, but I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hey, buddy. Just to relieve everybody's fears about the nuclear plant. What happened in Fukushima was that the tsunami flooded out their emergency generators. Therefore, they didn't have electricity to keep the reactor cool, so it overheated and then melted out. That's not going to happen in North Carolina. I helped build that nuclear plant. It's called Sharon Harris. And my sister lives right in Raleigh, so if I thought there was a threat, I'd tell her to get her butt out of there. So, but they're going to hunker down in the storm, and hopefully she'll be okay. All right, pal?
All right, well, thanks a lot for the update, and thanks a lot for the reassurance. I mean, again, the way reactors are shielded in the United States, Japan doesn't do that. And between the tsunami and the earthquake, they had some problems. I think we're going to be okay with the reactors. The chemical plant is another matter. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Goodbye.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcast Network.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com, or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers. Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And Aloha America, welcome back to the show. And before we go back to the phone lines here, a couple more stories I want to get on in. Moscow is now warning the U.S. and its allies against, quote, new dangerous steps, end quote, in Syria. And this is coming from the Russian Foreign Ministry. Their spokeswoman, Maria Zakharova, just flat out saying, we warn the U.S. and its allies against new dangerous steps. And everybody knows what's going on. The U.S. is getting ready to do another claim of Assad gassing his own people, even though it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's as phony as the official story of 9/11. And then the U.S. and their allies are going to go on in an attack. And there is a serious risk of direct military confrontation between the United States and Russia. Now, I'm pretty sure that Trump's advisors are assuring Trump that Putin will turn around and scramble back to Russia, that he doesn't have the gonads for a confrontation. I think they're wrong. I think they're taking a real big risk. But I saw a story come by here where Trump is actually considering whether or not he's willing to directly militarily confront Russia in this upcoming scramble. Meanwhile, the U.S. Is reinvigorating their military base at eastern Deir ez-Zor to boost their military presence in the region. So that is sending a signal. The U.S. is not leaving, even though they have absolutely no reason or right to be there. Well, they've got a reason. There's an oil pipeline involved. They want to get Assad out. They want to give the Golan to Israel. They want to get Syria's oil locked to the U.S. dollar. They got a lot of reasons. But they're taking a huge, huge risk. All right, back to the phones here. Richard in North Carolina. Richard, I hope you're away from the coast. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike. I talked to you earlier. I'm safe up by the mountains. But I'm calling because I am so discouraged. Is there anything we can do as U.S. people, so to speak, anything we can do to avert this terrible tragedy that's going to occur in Syria if the hegemonic imperial economic elite do what they want to do? It's just tragedy upon tragedy, and I won't accept what they do. And if there's any way I can possibly fight against that in a meaningful way in the future, I'll do that. I'd rather see the U.S. completely collapse than to continue with this war agenda against all these nations around the world.
I agree with you on that. And right now, the best thing every one of us can do is to be very vocal and speak out in our opposition to all of these wars and send a message to the rest of the world. We, the American people, do not support the actions of the United States government in these wars of aggression. I realize that's largely symbolic, but it's an important message to get on out, because if the United States loses this war, which I think ultimately they're going to, I don't want future generations of Americans to be burdened with the collective guilt of this war, the way the people of Germany, who weren't even alive when World War II happened, were made to feel collectively guilty for that. So I don't want to see that happen.
I agree with you completely on that.
And so everybody needs to stand up and say, I oppose all of these wars. Everybody, everywhere that you can. And yes, you're going to get shouted down by undercover FBI informants and paid shills and the rest of it, or people whose families are heavily invested in defense contractors. But we need to get that message out, that we do not agree with these wars, that we're not buying the lies given for the wars, that we know our government is lying about all of this stuff to justify these wars of aggression.
You know, Michael, you're absolutely correct about everything you said, and I'm a person who doesn't engage in social media. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Twitter. I don't do any of that crap. But I think I'm going to have to begin to do something along those lines to be able to go ahead and promote the point of view that you just expressed.
Well, I would strongly recommend that you not waste your time. don't waste your time with Facebook and Twitter. Go to the new startup ones like VK and Gab. Use DuckDuckGo as your search engine because Google, Facebook, and Twitter and YouTube, they're all fully on board with the pro-government, pro-liberal, pro-war agenda, and they're filtering anything that is against the official view.
Would you be willing to put on some sort of media I can get to via the internet that will list those sites you just mentioned, because I will use those.
Well, you can just do a search for alternatives to Facebook, alternative to Google, alternative to Twitter. If you look at my website over in the left margin bar, there's a little box full of different icons that will take you to these different alternative social media platforms, and they're doing really well. VK's business is booming, and they've now attracted $10 million investment to improve their platform. So it looks like they're going to be surviving the shakeout.
Okay, super. I'll do that. If you, where do I find them again?
They're in the left margin of whatreallyhappened.com in the little gray area, and it's just a bunch of little tiny icons, and they are located basically. Look at the chat room. Then there's an ad, and then underneath that, it's labeled "Censor-Free Social Media." And it's got Minds, Gab, VK, Yandex, DuckDuckGo.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm an enemy of the perfidy that seems to be encompassing the world. And anything I can do, I will do it. And so I will go to those websites and begin to figure out what the hell I got to do.
Yeah, but everybody needs to do that, even if it's just face-to-face with coworkers, friends, fellow students. We've got to send that message to the rest of the world. We, the American people, are not, in fact, supportive of these wars of aggression.
Never.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go here. And apparently, things are getting a little bit tense because militants inside Idlib have sent a warning to Erdogan that he should stay out of any coming battle for Idlib, and they're threatening him, saying they've actually dug a tunnel stretching into Turkey's Hatay province, through which they will go to carry out terror attacks against civilians and security forces. Now, that's a very long tunnel they're talking about, but whether Erdogan will listen to that, I don't know. Meanwhile, the Netherlands, which was embarrassed when it came on out that they have been supporting the Syrian militant groups, have now ended that support, basically saying that Assad is close to winning. Why waste any more money? Ron Paul was out with an article today. Why are we siding with Al-Qaeda in Syria and Yemen? Well, because it's convenient. They make for good proxies. But again, the irony of today being the 17th anniversary of 9/11, when 9/11 happened, oh, Al-Qaeda was our enemy. Al-Qaeda were terrible people. They were abusing puppies. They were putting frogs in blenders. And now all of a sudden, we're allied with them? That's right, I got to stop using the collective, Keith. The U.S. government is now allied with the very same group that was blamed for 9/11. Isn't that a little bit weird? The International Criminal Court has now responded to John Bolton's blast yesterday, threatening sanctions and even arrests of the judges if the International Criminal Court were to investigate allegations of U.S. war crimes committed in Afghanistan. And the ICC is saying, we are going to do our job, and we are undeterred by these threats. But the fact that Bolton even made that statement is almost a flashing neon sign saying, yes, we did it. We did commit war crimes in Afghanistan. Because if the United States hadn't committed war crimes and atrocities in Afghanistan, Bolton would have no reason to open his mouth. Let the ICC go up and take a look. They're not going to find anything. But that blast from John Bolton out there basically informed the entire world that, yes, the U.S. military committed war crimes and atrocities. The U.S. government is well aware of it. and they're going to protect our people from justice. Now, over in Ukraine, Kiev may launch a massive mop-up operation in Donbass. This is coming from the director of the Russian Center for Current Policy, Alexei Chesnikov, in an interview in TASS yesterday. And down in Israel, Israel opened fire on Palestinian boats attempting to break the siege of Gaza. And the incident took place yesterday. Some 55 boats set sail from the Gaza port in the northern Gaza Strip and just headed toward the nearest point of the sea border to challenge the Israeli blockade. And the Israeli Navy opened fire. No reports available on casualties just yet. I have a feeling that when this operation in Syria cranks up, which now seems inevitable, we're going to see Ukraine go into the eastern Ukrainian republics. We're going to see Israel really start to pound on Gaza. It's all going to start unwinding all at the same time. Now, that documentary that Al Jazeera produced on the Lobby USA is starting to leak out bit by bit. Apparently, there is a complete intact copy of it out there somewhere. I'm trying to find it. But according to this article that came on out from the Real News, there is a clip that is making the rounds now showing how the Israel lobby attacks U.S. activists to try and silence them, to try and silence anybody showing any support for Palestinian rights. And apparently the Israel lobby was also attacking Black Lives Matter. I'm not sure why. But again, obviously Israel does not believe in freedom of speech or the freedom to peacefully assemble and petition a government for redress of grievances. Israel believes in, you do what we tell you to do. Now, turning to domestic politics here, Trump is expected to declassify a series of documents related to former campaign advisor Carter Page and Department of Justice official Bruce Orr. This is coming out of Axios. And this, of course, all tangles up with that Steele dossier. And the Department of Justice has been basically pleading with the White House not to declassify these documents because apparently they're very embarrassing to the FBI. Well, the FBI ought to be embarrassed. If it's not behaving right, it should be exposed. We, the American people, have a right ultimately to the oversight of every element of the federal government. And if they are not doing their job, if they're not in compliance with the Constitution, if they're not obeying the law, we have a right to know about it. Now, Ken Starr, remember him way back during Whitewater and everything? He's out with a new book. Everybody's out there with a new book. He's going to make money, and he's making admissions, including the fact not only did he know that Hillary Clinton was a pathological liar, but he knew that she lied under oath about the death of former White House advisor Vince Foster. And he considered seeking an indictment for perjury, but dropped it at the last second, I can imagine, under a tremendous amount of political pressure. Now, it doesn't do Vince Foster or his family any good. It feels a little good to me to have a touch of vindication all these years later that, yeah, I was right. They were lying to us about Vince Foster. He did not commit suicide. He was murdered. All right, let's go back to the phones here. Martin in Concord, California. Aloha, Martin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. To get back to that 9/11, I heard at the beginning of the show today, and you talked about...
Okay, the sound just cut out here again.
How do you respond, Mike, when somebody says that sky phones could have been used for those calls?
There was one case where a sky phone was used by a stewardess, but in the case of the other calls, it was claimed that they were being made on cell phones. Not every one of the aircraft had sky phones. In fact, I think only one of them did.
Okay, because at that time I remember thinking that, I had flown and seen sky phones on the airplanes. I thought they were widely available. And later on, after the cell phones were brought up, people started saying, yeah, it's Skyphone. So, you know, they kind of debunked the debunker, you know, kind of thing. And I didn't want to get hung up on a stupid detail like that.
Well, it is a minor detail.
I don't want anything to...
You know, in 2001, Skyphones, first of all, Skyphones had never proved to be popular because they were so expensive to use. But I think there was a Skyphone on Flight 93 because the person who was on that phone reported while the plane was still at altitude, there had been a loud explosion and smoke was filling the cabin, which again does not jibe with the official story. But Skyphones kind of went away when they started putting satellite links into passenger jets that allowed you to use your own cell phone. Plus, you had to pay a fee to use the link, but the Skyphones went away at that point.
Yeah. Probably nobody would have been concerned about the cost when the plane's been hijacked. But if there were a Skyphones available,
well, see,
I don't know.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. The recipients of the calls, you know, got the caller ID, and the caller ID showed it to be from their family members who were on the plane. And you can't do that with a Skyphone. That has to be done with a cell phone. And I remember in one case there was somebody.
Or so they said,
there
right?
was somebody. In one case there was somebody who called up and said, you know, this is so and so. Do you believe me? And that was a very odd thing to say. And so it's thought that the voices on the phones were being impersonated. And even back then, MIT had come up with a device that could reshape a voice to make you sound like you were somebody else. So it's thought that all of these cell phone calls that said they're Arab hijackers with box cutters, that they may all have been fake.
So the recipients weren't in on it then?
No, of course not. Of course not. Anyway, listen,
okay.
We've got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with the last segment of our program today after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day.
heart attack, or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program today. And as we look back 17 years ago at 9/11, we understand we're lied to about what happened, how it was done, and who did it. It was a classic false flag carried out to put the blame on an innocent third party who was then made war on. And as we were mentioning yesterday, there are almost 50 cases in which governments have officially acknowledged using false flag attacks. And for every one that they've admitted to, I imagine there could be as many as 100 that are still classified. False flags are the big, big secret you were never supposed to know about, but they do happen. And we do know that the government does like to use trickery to get you into a war, because they understand you don't really like war. You don't like paying the costs of it. You don't like seeing your children being killed and crippled in war. You're sitting there wondering why you should even care what's happening in countries on the other side of the world. And so any ruler who wants to initiate a war has to trick his people into it, has to make it look like the situation is so dire that war is the only possible option, that anybody who says there must be another way is betraying the nation and is a traitor. And from that, we get much of the history of the United States of America. We know that 9/11 was a false flag. We know that the last two gas attacks in Syria were false flags. The one that's about to hit will be a false flag. We know that we were lied to about the Lusitania not smuggling weapons to Great Britain when it was torpedoed by Germany, bringing the U.S. into World War I. We know that Pearl Harbor was, in fact, not a surprise attack by the Japanese. Roosevelt spent the entire preceding year goading them into it. We know there were no torpedoes in the Gulf of Tonkin. We know there was no Spanish mine in Havana Harbor. How many more times are you going to have to be lied to before you're willing to stand up and say, I will not be loyal to a government that lies to me? I will not obey a government that lies to me. I will have a truthful government, or I will have no government at all. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, I can't imagine any parent who loves their children being comfortable with the idea of them growing up in a nation where the government lies and manipulates them to send them off to war. Especially wars that don't really serve the interests of the American people, but are all about serving the interests of giant, greedy corporations who want access to other people's natural resources and figure it's less expensive to send your kids out to steal them than to buy them. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got a lot of additional information he's going to share with you as well. Take what you learn here, share it with everyone that you know. Use email, use the new up-and-coming social media, talk face-to-face, use the sneaker net here. Keep on pushing the idea that Google, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are now actively trying to control the American social discussion going into the November elections. That's election meddling right there, and we should not tolerate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.